Hello, welcome to the Opinionistics. I'm your host, John Mailone. In this episode, no co-host, because reasons, as always. So, introducing from, we will mention that eventually, we have Richard Shong. Hello?
Hello? Yep, I'm here. I'm sorry. I
It's
I didn't
alright.
know I was supposed to respond.
Alright then. So, so where is it, Richard, you're originally from?
So I was born in China, a smaller sized city called Hangzhou, about I guess 200 miles south of Shanghai. And then I immigrated to the U.S. with my mother in 1980, 81. Yep.
Hmm, alright then. And what was it that encouraged your family to move out of China?
Yes, I would have been among the earliest teenager to leave China in 1980, uh, shortly after China reopened to the world, I guess, to the West. The reason was that my mother was actually adopted by American medical missionaries in back in 1931. And so when she was separated from her American parents in 1950 during the Korean War, she was left behind in China for about 30 years. And so when China reopened uh, to the West and reestablished diplomatic relationship with America, it, it was her first agenda on the list to leave China to go back to America, which she called home.
Wow, fabulous. What a story. And since you've moved to the United States, how was life you since you got there?
For me personally, it has been a struggle for what 45 years almost. And although things have become much better in the last few decades, but it was difficult for me. Uh, Unlike my mother, who was adopted by Americans, she was about a year old. So she spoke fluent, almost native English, Native American English. And for me, I hardly knew a word of English at the time. And I was about to enter, I guess, eighth or ninth grade at a pretty decent prep school in Boston. That's where we actually settled down after we came to the States. And so, struggling with language, how to read and write, and how to communicate uh, were huge challenges for me. And that's where I guess my struggles will begin.
Ah, all right then. And are there like any other jobs or opportunities that you wanted to do but you haven't got to it yet?
uh, that's uh, that's a great question. Uh, so I was about 14, and after I came here, I turned 15. So I was right around the age where a person will begin to think about what he or she would like to do or pursue, right? So maybe still kind of young, but before I left China, I had begun to show interest in literature, history, and I fancy myself become a poet, a writer. And of course, as I mentioned, after I came to America, uh, language became a huge obstacle for me. And so all of that went out the window. And I struggled all the way through college years, and also grad school in terms of writing, in terms of truly understand what people were saying. And so I ultimately chose science because science would seem to be simpler. And I thought I could hide behind a barrage of scientific terms and expressions so I didn't have to worry about my poor English. And so, dreaming about becoming a writer and author, that dream ended as soon as we landed in New York City at JFK Airport. Um, so I was somewhat shuffled into a scientific discipline, and that became my career for 30 years.
Hmm. All right then. At any point, have you ever felt like or want to like return to China? Just for a visit for a couple days?
Yeah, so I have been back to China now many, many times, dozens of times. Uh, Initially, my mother forbade me to go back to China because she feared the political climate might not be conducive for someone like me to go back, and I might even get trapped like she was back in 1950. But ultimately, I did, and I had to make many trips just to complete my mother's memoir because I had to relearn the culture, their history, relearn Chinese language that I had more or less forgotten how to speak and how to express. And so, yep, I, uh, I find those trips very enlightening and interesting. I met a lot of different people, uh, uh, which actually helped compiling my mother's book.
Ah, that's nice. And in terms of now, what what else are you currently working or doing right now?
Right now, I had just completed my mother's memoir, entitled "Spring Flower," and actually there are three books in a series, so a trilogy, if you will. And since completing them, I guess now it will be last spring. I haven't been doing too many things except resting and recuperating.
Hmm, very good. If at any point you ever felt like you want to live anywhere else in the world, where would that be?
Oh, I think uh, that location has changed with time. At one point in time, I thought it would be New York City because that's where I my first impression of America was. Because we landed in JFK and we spent some time in New York, and I fell in love with New York City, and I will call that pretty much my first American home. While I still love New York, at one point, I would say about 20 years ago, when I made a visit to Hong Kong, I felt, wow, this place will fit me perfectly because it's so multicultural. Westerners, Asian people, people from all over the world, right? Live together, at least amongst one another. And I view myself as somewhat in between. I'm neither Chinese nor American. Okay, I'm Chinese American, but still. And the atmosphere in Hong Kong was great. And then at one point in time, I thought it would be Australia. Anyway, so I can go on, but that location seems to change from time to time. Yeah.
Ah, okay, that's nice to have variety. Nice. If your life was a meal, what kind of meal would that be?
A meal, meaning
Yes.
dinner?
Oh yeah.
Oh, uh, let's see. That's a very interesting question. It would be hamburger, French fries, and a smaller size bottle of Coke. That would be among my favorite. Although I have come to learn a how to cook, how to make Asian food, b how to appreciate Asian food.
Oh, very nice. What kind of music do you often listen to?
That's interesting. I uh, I fell in love with Simon and Garfunkel when I first arrived in the States. And of course, as I was telling you, my English language ability was extremely poor. I had no idea what they were saying and what they were singing, except I loved the song, the tune, and I love how the lyrics will go roll off their tongues, even though I didn't understand precisely what they were saying. Even when I had the lyrics in front of me, I didn't quite understand what they meant. So from that point on, I that would have been my favorite, and I grew from there. Of course, later on when I could start to understand words better, phrases, lyrics, and then Bob Dylan became one of my favorites.
Wow, nice. If someone wrote a book about you, what do you think its title would be?
Wow, that's catching me off guard. Except I was talking to someone earlier that after finishing my mother's memoir, uh, what should I be doing next? And I've been writing a few essays here and there regarding various different things associated with my mother's memoir, like missionaries and you know immigration, about China. And then I was telling this person that wait, the way I'm answering many of these questions and addressing the topics for these essays, it sounded like it's all from my own perspectives, looking at my mother's memoir, which will not be part of her memoir, her books. And so maybe my next book will be what I thought about my mother's life, or what I thought about my own life. So then this book's title would be uh, To Write a Book or To Write a Memoir. Is that
Fabulous.
this is just off the cuff? Yep.
Very nice. If Where do you see yourself 20 years from now?
Oh, I don't know. Uh, because suddenly I realized 20 years, it's a long time, but 20 years seem to go by very quickly. Uh, and in 20 years, I like to see myself a little more relaxed about what I want to do on a daily basis. Uh, Maybe looking back on the past 10 years, anyway, uh, the fact that I compiled and completed my mother's book, I'm hoping in 20 years I will look back on the fact that I took my time, maybe completing one more book or a couple books. Uh, Maybe enjoy the fact that even though uh, becoming a writer and author had completely gone out the window the second my mother and I landed in New York. But some 40 years later, I was able to do something along that line by looking at my mother's book. And then maybe in 20 years, I will really become an author, writing a few more, or at least one more.
Ah, okay. What's something that a lot of people are missing out on because they don't know about it?
Ah, I think I think from my own experience, what I've found was that for 30 some years, I've been teaching chemistry. That had been my career. I was alluding to that I chose science out of desperation, out of a lack of language ability. And then I basically did that one thing only. I never looked up. I just I just taught chemistry until I started working on my mother's memoir. I had to learn about the world and learn a lot about history, whether it's Chinese history, American history, or simply world history. And I realized I began to look up and look around what's around me and noticing there are a lot of people. And I wasn't just this tunnel visioned person. And so I think what people are missing could be many different things. And the reason being is that we're all very keyed up on what we're doing in front of us and what we need to do in front of us. I'm not saying they're not important. Those might be very important things to do to pursue. Uh, but maybe um, spend some time, look up and look around, and one will find many things to learn from. Not only that, but things to appreciate, things that might change a person's perspective or life. And so, yes, I haven't answered your question head on or directly. I'm being as evasive here, but those could be many different things. I guess that would be my point.
Yeah, I can see that. What has taken you the longest to get good or decent at?
Decent. Beg your pardon. I'm sorry. Decent.
What has taken you the longest to
Uh
get
huh.
good or decent at?
Oh, I see. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Okay.
It's all right.
Yeah. I think writing. And again, I chose chemistry. I thought I could hide behind these scientific terms and expressions where one will use them repetitively. And so it will camouflage my weakness in writing and the weakness in this very language that I had to live with after I came to the States. But I turned out to be wrong. Because when I handed in my thesis to my mentor at the time, this will be 35 years ago, and when he returned it to me, and he said, "No, this is not how people will write. Not a native speaker will. Not how a native speaker will write." And so I was dumbfounded, realizing that even writing a scientific paper or a scientific thesis requires good writing. And lo and behold, after I began to pursue teaching, teaching requires writing, formal writing on a daily basis. And of course, I sought out a lot of help in terms of editing and teaching me how to get it right and to write more or less like a native speaker. And so that I would say I'm still in that process. So this will be what, 45 years? I'm still learning how to uh, do it well, but I would say that would be the longest so far taken me.
Ah, all right then. What is your favorite summer activity?
Uh, I like to run. I That was one thing my mother taught me when I was very young. I was probably about 5 or 6 year old. We were still in China. She had a heart attack, and I was suffering from various problems, medical problems. And then so she thought running will help cure us, or at least make us a little stronger. And so I began to run when I was around 6 year old. Yeah. So I would run with my mother. And so during the summer, of course, right, you can run outside. In the winter, you're more or less cooped up and you have to look for a treadmill. And so now, I don't know, 50 years later, 50 plus years later, I found myself still enjoy running, especially in the summer. running on. There are many lakes here in Madison, Wisconsin. So I would run around the lakes, and I just had a run this morning.
Oh, that's nice. Would you rather never use social media again or never watch another movie or TV show again?
Not a big fan of social media and very weak at that, not proficient anyway. Since working with some of these publicists who led me to you, uh, they've been coaching me how to use them, and I find that they can be useful tools, but they can also be very annoying. And in terms of watching movies, I'm not a big movie watcher, especially as of late. I've watched some really good movies when I was younger, and so yeah, I don't know what to make of that. But yeah, I wouldn't say that they shouldn't exist. Social media platforms or movies, they can be very entertaining, very good for people. But I haven't been haven't kept up watching movies or learning how to use social media.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely understand.
Yeah,
Life
thank
was,
you.
you're welcome. I feel like life was much simpler before social media came along. Yes, it's useful, but if you're too reliant on it, there's a lot of effects that does you down dirty, you know?
It's very time consuming, and sometimes I even find myself in these past few weeks suddenly opening up, let's say, Instagram. And my first thought would be, oh, let's see, do I have a new follower? And okay, that's important, and that's one of its purposes. But how important is that really, right? How many followers, how many you're following, and so on. And some of those postings are really, I don't know, just time consuming. May
Yeah,
not be
does it?
worth one's time, right? So
Yeah, does it actually reflect who you are as a person in real life?
not at all. Nope. Yep.
Exactly.
I completely agree. Yep.
Yeah, they're two different things.
Absolutely. Yep. But
Yeah,
we tend to be, I guess, reading the news or watching the news. I guess a lot of people, especially younger generation, tend to be absorbed by these platforms. Yeah.
yes, absolutely. What is your favorite season?
Favorite season?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I used to think it's a summer, but Madison, Wisconsin offers a very short summer because we're way up north here. It's cold. And winter is definitely not my favorite. And so the fall is very nice because of the color and then the mood that the autumn usually provides, because now the summer is kind of behind you in the rear view mirror. And then the harsh winter is soon to be upon you. And yet you're still enjoying warm enough temperature, and you're looking at the colors of these trees and as they turn. uh, it's poetic. It's yeah, it can be very beautiful. It can be sad and happy at the same time, I guess, for lack of a better word. I'm trying to search that word in my mind right now, but anyway, that would be what I would like to say. Yeah.
Yes, it's all over the place.
Yes.
Which recent news story have you found most interesting?
ah I guess there can be several or many, um, but the most interesting one, I guess, will be the things that are happening in Middle East and the war between war in Gaza. I try to keep up on what's going on with that, and I'm hoping that there will be some kind of resolution soon for all those people involved. Right.
Yeah, it's so sad.
Yes.
What is something you've tried that you didn't think you would like, but you've ended up liking it?
Ah, let me see. What would that be? Again, there can be many. Uh, it will go back to uh, the ironic. It's ironic, but it will go back to my earlier days in Boston when I was still in junior high and high school. And I never learned how to read a book properly because again my language deficiency at the time, even now, and so I had to complete my mother's books, and I have to ask people to read her books. That's the irony. That's the ironic part. But recent days or recent years, I realized, reading a book may not be a bad idea, even though I had found it difficult, and also I found it just it takes time consuming, and I could never persist long enough to finish it. And so yeah, so I tried that, and it turned out I actually liked it. It really helped me finishing my mother's book. It turned out to be a inspiration on the side. It was a book written by one of my American cousins. The title was Interviews with 30 Remarkable People in This World. And so I would read one person's interview at a time as I compiled, edited my mother's book, and I found that very rewarding. And so you asked me earlier what would be what would I like to see in 20 years about myself. I also hope I would have read a few more books.
Hmm. All right then. If you could see one movie again for the first time, what would that be?
Also, there'll be several, but one stands out at this very moment. Would be Forrest Gump with Tom Hanks.
Oh yeah, that's a classic.
Yeah. Uh, Groundhog Day will be another one. Shawshank Redemption will be another one. I give you
Fabulous.
three. I'm sorry, you only wanted one.
It doesn't matter. It's
Okay.
actually I understand there's more than one that you would see again because they're good movies. Of course they are.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah. If you could host a talk show, who would you have on?
It will be this actor. His name is Alan Alda. He was the character. He was this character in a TV show MASH, an adaptation of 1970 movie MASH, and he was the character Hawkeye Pierce. He was a physician uh, during the Korean War, I guess. Uh, I say that because I've always been fascinated with his personality and his persona. And he was also one of my mother's favorite person because my mother and I both enjoy watching MASH back in the 1980s, and it was still running yet, not just all reruns. So that would be the person. Yeah, I will be interested in meeting and
Ah,
hosting a show involving, I guess, asking him questions. Yeah, interviewing him.
yes, very good. And that is all we have for this episode. It was great having you on, Richard, talking about your life growing up, starting out in China, and then moving to the United States, and how your life has been going on since then, and everything else about your life and all your opportunities. It's been great.
Thank you so much for having me, Peter. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay.
And until next time, stay opinionated.